Hey guys, Dov here with another battle for Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer. Here again, up against Ludwig, game 2 of our series. I've taken the Filthy Vampire counts against Skaven. And yeah, one of the reasons I wanted to participate in this tournament is there are sort of different sub-metas in different language groups from what I've learned. For example, Ludwig here took Grimgore in the last game, and he's taken TRETCH in this game. And in the chat afterwards, he had mentioned that he actually really likes TRETCH, which is interesting. You know, TRETCH is not a lord that I would consider taking very often for the Skaven, but there are certainly things about him. 70 melee defense, charge defense against large. He's got some good survivability traits otherwise. You know, melee defense, damage resistance, and so on. It's going to be pretty beneficial, so I've decided to kind of fight fire with fire here, gone with my KEMMLER build. We've gone with a bit of a variation, though. I did bring some stuff on KEMMLER here, including the Cloak of Mists and Shadows, which are going to pop promptly as he attempts to survive getting picked off by Jezzails here. He's also got Undeath Resurgent, which I don't normally take, but I decided to bring it just for the extra melee defense buff. Currently getting bombed by some Globadiers. We've got also Jezzails, slaves up front, with some clan rats here, a Hell Pit Abomination, Plague Priest, and as I mentioned, TRETCH. Got a couple of Blood Knights here trying to bait out some Rat Ogres and Storm Vermin with Halberds. Also got two Black Knights, Sword and Shield, Claw of Nagash, Regiment of Renown Mortis Engine, Zombies, Skeletons, and the Sternsmen as well. Regiment of Renown Graveguard with a White King, Unholy Lodestone. Very important to have the Unholy Lodestone, not only for the Vigor Mortis, but for the healing as well. And then the actual spells are going to be on this Necromancer here. He has Invocation of Nehek and Raise Dead, and is mostly just out on the flank as a distraction. As you can see, my opponent's going all in on sniping KEMMLER, which is fine. KEMMLER will survive this. He's taken a ton of damage, but that Cloak of Mists and Shadows definitely helped there. And yeah, Krell has now been summoned, which is kind of one of the two main roles of KEMMLER here. The other one is to get into melee, start regenerating. So TRETCH is going to come over here, just absolutely blast everyone, but unfortunately, doesn't really have the best chance to take on KEMMLER here. Meanwhile, over on the flanks, my Blood Knights are really going to be the kind of the win condition unit, besides the Mortis Engine, obviously. I'm just going to stick this in combat and let it kind of drain some of these elite units over on this flank. These Storm Vermin don't really have enough DPS to truly take down the Claw of Nagash, but you can see these Blood Knights find a gap in the line, shoot up through, and we're going to go after Rat Ogres and the Hell Pit Abomination specifically with them, right? I want to counter my opponent's mobility and mass so that my Blood Knights more or less have a free hand to just cycle charge to the army into oblivion. So we get a beautiful multi-charge on these Rat Ogres here, just immediately shattering them just 100%. And that's going to allow us to kind of overrun into the second line here. You can see my Black Knights had taken a lot of damage initially on that approach, but also able to get back and start to compromise these weapons teams. It is very important, obviously. This is one of the main kind of killing portions of the Skaven army here. So we managed to hit on the Jezzails, get on the mortars here as well. There are still the Rat Ogres fighting, and of course the Hell Pit Abomination is definitely going to be tough, but my idea with the Hell Pit Abomination is to just more or less ignore it until the late game. You can see, speaking of being ignored, the Necromancer has been on his corpse cart, solo fighting Skaven slaves here, which is just fine. You know, he actually is the one with Invocation of Nehek, so he can just sit out here on the corner and kind of cast it wherever on the battle, and I'm more than happy to have him just be ignored for the time being. I'm not too happy about TRETCH wanting to be ignored. Krell certainly has other ideas, and he's been doing his best to try and keep up with TRETCH and give him a beating. But, yeah, unfortunately, TRETCH is a slippery one. He definitely is a slimy, slippery guy trying to get away here. And unfortunately, Krell, just so angry, has to take it out on these poor summoned clan rats here. Krell himself, of course, being a summon, looks like he's getting pretty close to degenerating. So we're just going to come in, maybe get a couple attacks on this Hell Pit Abomination. Maybe. Oh, poor Krell. So sad. He'll get there eventually. We've got a pretty good lead on the balance of power. Unfortunately, though, KEMMLER actually getting chased around by TRETCH now. So cue the Benny Hill music as the White King, the regular White King, not Krell, decides to chase TRETCH as TRETCH chases KEMMLER. KEMMLER is at his healing cap, but again, he's mostly just a distraction at this point. He costs less than 1,000 points, so not really a big deal. There are 3,200 points, or rather, worth of Blood Knights here, though, getting a beautiful multi-charge on the Hell Pit Abomination in the actual engagement that matters. Don't want to stay for too long. Definitely want to take advantage of that massive 78 charge bonus. Absolutely beautiful with that Frenzy active. We're going to pull away there. There's still a few pockets of Storm Vermin fighting, but again, they really don't have enough DPS to finish off the Mortis engine. And just as is, the Skaven, a lot of people say this matchup is even, and I just don't see it. And I mean, granted, I don't know, it seems like there aren't as many really good Vampire Counts players these days. But this matchup, I mean, Blood Knights literally kill everything on the Skaven's roster. Like, there's not one unit that is good against Blood Knights, except killing them at ranged, and it's very easy to compromise Skaven ranged as Vampire Counts, so, like, I really don't see how this matchup is at all even. Yeah, for those of you who are commenting on my tier list, but that's just me, especially considering, like, the Klav Nagash, one of its Regiment of Renown traits is that it has magic resistance, right? Which, obviously, a lot of the Skaven missiles, Warp Lightning Cannons, that's magic, you know, Liber Bubonicus, a lot of your other single target, even Skrulk's melee attacks, for example, all magic damage, right? I don't think the Hell Pit Abomination actually does magic damage, although it kind of looks like it does from the animations, from the Warp, I don't know what you would call that thing, the Warp Club there, but the Hell Pit Abomination falls to the Blood Knights. With that, that's going to put a pretty deep dagger in the balance of power. TRETCH is still kicking around somewhere, unfortunately, having outlived KEMMLER, but oh man, true clash of the lowest of the low. Thankfully, the White King is still here. Krell's assistant is a secretary, and oh man, TRETCH just like jumps out of the Hell Pit Abomination. What a nasty surprise. That was hilarious. We'll watch these two as they duke it out, and of course the Headless Skeleton. I'm not sure I could exactly say that he's watching, necessarily. He is observing, certainly. But oh yeah, TRETCH going full windmill. Unfortunately, he's backed up against the Hell Pit Abomination here, so they're really not in the best situation. White King mostly just cackling at him at this point. Oh, as he goes for the killing blow, TRETCH nopes out of there, so fun finish there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. Yeah, another great game with Ludwig. Definitely did a good job taking down my Black Knights, but the Blood Knights, I mean, exactly what I'm talking about. 189, 199 kills. There's no unit on the Skaven roster except, I mean, even like Flayers and Doom Wheels. I mean, obviously they're anti-infantry chariots. They do have a bit of armor piercing, and especially like for the Doom Wheels, they have some missile damage. But the Blood Knights still just counter them so hard. I mean, the Blood Knights counter all of everything on the Skaven. So definitely power units here. 158 kills as well on the Klav Nagash, and considering a lot of those are actually Storm Vermin, that is pretty good. The Sternsman definitely got crumped pretty hard there, as did Heinrich. They were kind of the missile magnets, but the Unholy Lodestone, though, very importantly, survived. This is kind of the actually real target. Unholy Lodestone and the Necromancer are sort of the actual real priority targets here. I mean, obviously, the Klav Nagash, yes, is probably number one. And then I would say number two is the Unholy Lodestone, or even the Necromancer, considering that he has proper Invocation of Nehek. But by kind of spreading my high-value targets around here, like realistically you have like 5 or 6 high-value targets here, and then even like several mid-value targets. There's just way too many things to try and shoot at. So even if I do get one unit absolutely lit up, like in this case the Sternsman, who normally will just cleave through a ton of units, in that case, then it was the other units that carry, right? Like the Mortis Engine and the Blood Knights and stuff. So definitely pretty powerful. One of the reasons I say that the Vampire Counts are such a good faction is you can do all sorts of different stuff. Like, I know a lot of people very much have a monster paradigm. I guess me, as coming from playing more the Empire and Bretonnia, I have very much like a heavy cavalry paradigm. So, like here, I guess the only real monster is the Mortis engine, if you could consider that a monster. It causes terror, and I mean, it is an absolute powerhouse. And then obviously Krell as well, when you summon him, will cause terror. But there's really no, like, real monsters in this build, necessarily. And it's, I would say, one of the best vampire counts builds I've ever made. So, just some food for thought for you vampire counts players out there. Not saying that your faction is weak. In fact, I think they're just very, very strong, and you're just playing them wrong. So on that note, we'll end. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.